We're here today with the legends of Arizona drag strips, at least the Phoenix area drag strips of Beeline Dragway and Firebird International Raceway. Some guys that we really appreciate the efforts and the passion they have had over the years for drag racing and giving drag racers a safe place to race over the years and let them have fun at the same time. We've got
Steve Younghans,
Don Gainey,
Tom Sands.
So if you don't know these guys, I got the pleasure of knowing them back in the days of Beeline Dragway. My good friends, the Gusick family, and my other good friend Bob DeYoung were very close to these people. I got the pleasure of knowing them before I actually ever went down the drag strip on my own. But they got some great times together. Tom is kind of the leader of the group, as the race director, but he put together the A team, and so this is part of the A team. We certainly, there's other members, but a lot of great memories here of drag racing, and of course it starts with Beeline and goes on to Firebird. But how did you guys all get to meet one another?
through Beeline. I came into work and doing tech, and I think I remember, like Tom was saying, what was the guy's name? It was the director,
Dave Lindsay.
Dave Lindsay. He was the race director at the time, and Steve came on board later, and I remember the good times we did have when Lindsay was there. We'd have races, and he had it fixed up with a little bar off of what was that, McDowell.
74th Street.
Yep, they used to give out little free beer to the winners. And so the people that didn't collect their beers, and after the races, guess where we went? To the little beer place on McDowell.
Generosity.
And used up the free beers that they were a sponsor kind of for the races. And we used to go to those places, and I don't think Tom went to those places with us.
I don't remember that.
That's good. You didn't want to
Boy
bet
Scout.
Yeah.
Well,
But anyway, that's where I met these two gentlemen, and there's other guys that we probably would like to show our respect to, is Tom and Jim Neely. They aren't here. They helped us a lot, and there's numerous people that used to work with us that aren't around anymore, but we still remember the good times with them and stuff.
so it took a lot of people to run a race.
Yes.
You all had your area of expertise. The people we never saw were the people that ran the clocks,
Right.
and that was sometime we're trying to push cars through as quickly as you can, because you can only squeeze time, so you can't compress time, but you have to maximize it.
Yeah.
They certainly did a great job for as many cars that went down the tracks. The errors were few and far between, and so those are great people. There's the safety crews that made sure that the tracks were safe, and they're definitely the people experienced the starting line crews. They're the last chance to stop somebody from hurting themselves before they went down the track.
Yeah.
You've had some great crews out. You've worked with some great people over the years. There's no doubt about it. What is your Beeline days? Tell me something about your working together at Beeline that.
Let Tom give us some of his memories.
Well, I think Don was working there when I first started working there. And like I said earlier, I kind of went around and talked to different people and got to know them, the workers that were there, and got to know their expertise. I remember that you had to have good people, and between Joe Thaden and Steve Younghans down on the ground, things got taken care of, and taken care of well. So it was all about having good people. Beeline, I don't know, just a lot of good memories. It was warm out there. I think I learned that I was sensitive to caffeine, because they would give us free Cokes up in the tower, and so you drink Cokes rather than water. And so we'd get over like at midnight or whatever. We'd get out of there and go home, and I'd go to bed and my eyes were like this, you know, and I wouldn't hardly sleep the rest of the night. And then I figured out it was the caffeine. So, but I remember long nights, dust storms that would just, oh man, here comes a dust storm, you know, and we knew that Rick Lynch, the promoter, did not want to give any money back. He said, we're going to run this race, you know, and he'd tell people, if you go now, I'm not going to give you your money back unless the sun comes up tomorrow or whatever. He didn't even say that. We're going to finish this race. And so we'd wait around and then find someplace dry and then march cars up and down the track to try and dry it off, and the race did go on.
You talk about the noise. I remember Beeline Dragway that as a spectator, as a kid, going out, and I think it's just the sensory of being young and the loudness of it. I remember being home after the race was over, and I could still hear the funny cars or the fuel cars. They play through my head. You know, I believe that's part of the reason why I thought, well, what if hearing loss or ringing in my ears today was my days of Beeline Dragway. But you guys made it fun. You had some great characters out there.
Gary Judy.
Well, I always thought of Streaker Dave.
Streaker Dave. That was my first one. Yeah, boy.
Expand upon Streaker Dave.
Go ahead, Don.
Oh man, you know you're doing better than I did.
So this was back in the 70s when streaking was the kind of
The thing to do.
Yeah, and he was just a different character altogether. And
Never knew when he was going to show up.
no, but
He was fun.
he was just a different guy. We'll leave it at that.
So we had a streaker.
Yeah.
We had. You look at you guys. Come on, like it's been said earlier, there's statute of limitations that run out on this stuff. That's all you want to go there. So the stuff that was like in your mind today is the streaker.
Yeah.
The national events, the old AHRA national events. Unlike, it's just to my knowledge that there was definitely a team with the AHRA would come in with the national events, but I think they probably depended more on the local track to staff the events than the NHRA probably did. NHRA had different level people come in. What do you remember about national events that were, craziness or
Chaos.
I remember at one of the early events, one of the AHRA Winter Nationals, the Tices would come out. Jim Tice and his son, was it Jimmy or whatever his son's name was? They would come out and they were like, just wearing regular clothes, but they were the owners of the event. He was the president of the AHRA, and I remember there was a guy that worked at Super Snap, Dave Kobos, and so we needed people to work out at these national events, especially security. So Dave talked his brother into coming out and working at the national event and working security. So I think he was at the front gate in the pits there where you pull in. So he's out there, and this car pulls up, and he says, "My name's Jim Tice," and Dave Kobos' brother said, "I don't care who you are, you're not going to get it unless you buy a ticket." and he was steadfast on that. And Mr. Tice was a little upset, but then when he came in, he complained to Rick, I guess. But you know what happened? It turns out that that David Kobos' brother, Jim Tice, then hired him to work security at other races because he knew that nobody was going to get it unless they got paid.
That's a great story. The big head guy comes in. It would be like, the people who aren't aware of that, that was the Wally Parks of
Yes.
the AHRA. I mean,
Yes.
he was the guy, and nobody gets in for free. That's crazy. Do you remember nights when people got in for free? You discovered people.
Yep. That was the days they used to get in the trunks and hide in the trucks and whatever, and yep.
I got a story on that.
Yes.
I think it was 1976. In between the AHRA days and the NHRA days, we ran one or two, was it PRA races, which was headed up by Don Garlitz. So we had a meeting with Don Garlitz. He wanted to meet with the crew. We met at some restaurant someplace, and I'm sure you guys were there. And Don Garlitz was there, and he was talking about how he wanted to see the race run. And one of the things he says was, now, you make sure the people that come in the gates, like back with a front gate story, people that come through the gates, you check every single car and check those trailers. Have them open up those trailers, and he says, what you'll see is two big eyes looking back at you. And he says, get them out of the trailer, they should pay too.
And you found people in trailers.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
we didn't, but the
We
people
did,
at the
yeah.
gate
We
did.
didn't work down there, but
Yeah.
Security guys did.
Security guys did. Yeah.
The people would talk about, coming out, other places through the fences and all that. And I mean, sure, there were a few people that would sneak in there. Being on an Indian reservation, which both Beeline and Firebird were on Indian reservations, you certainly couldn't tell it at night, with the number of beer cans left over in the morning and such. And you did your very best to curtail it, but you guys did a good job of managing that, and let people be people, and without getting out. I'm sure every once in a while you had some stories about some people that were probably overserved or overserved themselves, and you probably had to take care of it. But for the most part, I would think hopefully that was one of your least concerns.
Yeah.
What about other special events? Do you remember anything that drove you crazy about, okay, we got this race, this annual race? I know at Firebird in subsequent years they always was Robosaurus, who would have a different type of crowd. What was the different crowd at Beeline? I mean, what was typical of, we're going to do one of these events, and you kind of either liked it more or you were a little bit more leery of it? Anything come to mind?
I never really look at. I know once later on when it became more business-like, I guess maybe you want to call. I'm not sure how you want to call it, but I never really worried about things like that. It just seemed like things fell together. They just went along, and we improvised on some of the stuff that had to be done or something. But it just seemed like everything always came out to me working okay, and everybody was happy. Well, there's a few times I guess there's stuff that happens that a lot of people weren't happy because stuff would drag out for a long time, But
I think that's what made our crew work so well together, is we had an idea of what the end result should be, and we all worked together to make it happen.
yeah.
Made it happen.
Made it happen.
I asked him this question, Steve, and I see you grin. I know you want to tell a story of some type. Something's in your
Oh, I
mind.
got a couple stories. Well, one at Beeline, there was a crew that came in from Canada, and one of the crew members, unbeknownst to the car owner, had some little wacky tobacco stuffed in the headers of the funny car. The fuel, the nitro, would mask the smell of the fuel for the dogs at the border. Well, they got there late. They had just enough time to roll the car out of the trailer, throw some fuel in the tank, roll it up by the old tower. That's when it was right after they started doing instead of the roller starter, the
Static start.
static starter. Spun the motor over, and all these baggies started coming out of the headers. And there stood two officers, an Indian police officer and a sheriff. And I'm standing there looking, I'm going, I'm looking at them, they just sat there and looked around. Car went off and made its pass. I turned around, and I don't know where those baggies went, but I saw one of them kick it off to the side of the track. The next thing I know, they're all gone. All I can tell you is when I went back to the pits later on, said, did you know that was in there? He was not a happy camper.
The driver.
The owner and
Owner driver.
Owner driver. But that was just
But that was back. That was a different time, and
different times. Who knows? They might have had some good peace pipe out on the reservation with that stuff. Who knows?
but it just magically disappeared.
Just
Nobody had to clean that
magically
mess
disappeared.
up.
Nobody said a word. It just disappeared.
Wow. The racers were, we had over the years we had some excitement of I seem to remember Gene Snow's cars being stolen from a paint shop here in town, and some interesting stories. But anything else? I mean, let me ask you this. I remember towards the end when Chevrolet came out with the X car, the Citation.
Mm-hmm.
There was they filmed a commercial out there with the Chitwood family or whatever, and I happened to be out there to see that. I mean, was the track used for? Did you do many commercials out there? Was there like modern day tracks? They way to keep revenue going. They try to find every which way to run them out.
Right.
Was the track ever used for private events very often out there at Beeline?
Not at Beeline, I don't remember.
No, I don't remember either.
Not at Beeline, I don't remember it was.
There was a TV show filmed out there about Evel Knievel, and they incorporate either a movie or a TV show. It's out there on YouTube someplace if you can find it. But it was Beeline Dragway, and it was about I don't know, some bad guys were going to put some dynamite in the ramps and blow it up just when he took off or something. But in the end, I guess it blows up, but he still makes the jump, and that was prior to my time. Evel Knievel was out there, I think at least twice. Once when I was race director, and then again when a few years prior to that. But there was that one movie made out there.
Before my time.
Nothing like at Firebird
No.
when Charlie had the track there. It was he managed it well because they did a lot of tire testing with and GM, all those places would come in and do testing with cars and
Goodyear
stuff.
would test.
Yeah, he did a lot of track rental for stuff like that.
The thing with the track though is, I remember the Winter Nationals. We were blessed that we were on the swing of people coming, a lot of pro cars coming to and from the NHRA Winter Nationals, and I think we were before the NHRA Winter Nationals.
Right.
Warm-ups.
So we actually saw some cars here that supposedly got their debut
Right.
in Pomona, but we actually saw them first. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things we were entitled to was seeing the pro stock cars over these. I remember the Tijuana Taxi and the unique pro stock cars that we saw them here first. And the racers liked it like Beeline because it was like a warm up for Pomona, but it was serious enough to come out and race to win.
Yeah.
The unique racers over the years, who stands out in anybody's mind? Like, of course, Garlett's, Berdone, but we had pro stock racers. The Cat in the Hat, Glidden, Jack Roush. Jack Roush, excuse me. He's going in the SEMA Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah.
And before he was known for his circle track, he was really big into drag racing.
Right.
What characters do you remember coming out there that you enjoyed seeing? That?
Well, I always like Nicholson was always my favorite. I was always a Ford guy, so Dino Don, and then Glidden when he started getting really involved and everything. I was a Ford guy, so I was always after those guys. It's always interesting to see the knowledge, the stuff that they were doing at the time for doing their testing and bench testing, flow testing and stuff. Techniques that I didn't see the techniques they used, but just imagining what they were doing back then, coming to figure out ways to make the car run faster and stuff. It was a lot of knowledge, and some of them they didn't have engineering degrees. It's
Self-taught.
Self-taught. Yeah.
I remember once, I used to really enjoy just what you're saying, Chris, about going out there and seeing the cars right off, brand new paint and new innovations. And one thing I remember, I used to like to go look at Grumpy Jenkins' cars because he was quite an innovator. And for an engineering student, I'd look over his engine, and you could just walk up in those days. Had the hood open, and I remember out there one time, early 70s or whatever, and he had his headers wrapped one year with some sort of a wrapping. And I didn't know whether it was to help dissipate heat or to keep the heat in it, or maybe not, maybe keep the heat underneath the hood lower. I don't know. But it was things like that was special to go out and see these cars, like you say, brand new, some of them still putting parts on them, and come out and race at Beeline in January.
the early day at Beeline, we every once in a while see notable racers like Charlie Allen out there, and when you guys went on to work for Charlie Allen. I remember being, I was always fascinated by the pro stock guys back then, and Dandy Dick Landy, and pushing us. They were help pushing this car on the scales, and I was so help us push this on. So sure, I got up there and pushed it on, and I'm looking at the car, and I realized where I was, and they go, "Kid, get off the scales. We're trying to weigh the car." There were great memories. I mean, I think I know that that track was very, very close. I mean, everything was close together, and you didn't have to go far. You got to see. I think you got to see the cars better there than even when you moved on to Firebird. I think there was, of course, trailers changed and people started putting ropes up around. But as a young guy going out to Beeline, it was definitely Mickey Thompson, and on these unique, funny cars we saw him here first. We certainly had, the John Force days when John Force was the Oiler, in his early days, and just getting started, and then definitely transitioned to. We saw him at Firebird go on to really become a superstar in front of our very eyes. But racers that we lost a few racers over the years there. Unfortunate accidents, that's part of the risk of drag racing. But for the most part, pretty safe track to race at. Different track, when went to Firebird, all of a sudden we had these things along each side of the track that there were concrete things where Beeline was wide open spaces. There wasn't a guardrail. What was the difference?
We called them bumpers.
Bumpers.
The bumper cars.
The bumper cars, slat car track. The days of running Beeline without, did any drag strips didn't have guardrails, but when they started going up, Rick still pushed away from doing so. You. So back in the Beeline days, compared to Firebird, Beeline didn't have guardrails. Even the photographers were, they're out on their own. I mean, they took a risk of being there off the side of the track. Track started getting guardrails, but Rick didn't do it at Beeline. Was there a reason that I think?
Yeah, in fact, once I remember talking with Rick. I used to go down to his Super Snap shop two or 3 days a week after my engineering classes and help him out on different things, and we'd talk about things. And I asked him one time, how about putting guardrails up? I mean, Orange County's got guardrails. How about? And he said, I'll never do that. And I guess that he said I witnessed an accident where they had the Armco guardrails like Orange County, where a guy in a dragster lost a leg because it got caught on the guardrail, and he said it was like a razor blade. It just took his leg off. And he says as long as I have this track, if somebody gets out of control, they can just get off into the dirt, straighten things out. And then we had guardrails back by the grandstands, but just there was that cushion area of just dirt where people could pull off, and it wasn't grass, because Rick said grass is slippery, but he wanted dirt.
We always thought it because grass had to be watered. He didn't want to spend the money.
Well, there's probably some of that too.
Interesting about that thing about that track, but when it came along, Rick was the site. Was Rick really the first big promoter the track had that did a lot with it, or who were the previous promoters that you?
Well, it was Jim
Rogers.
Jim Rogers. Yeah, it was Jim Rogers that he's amazing to talk to about getting the thing going, and he was the first race director, and then he developed that. But the innovation started with him. The track. So with that track, it's Phoenix had a number of tracks over the years. Of course, the longest running track would have been. For a lot of years, was Speed World or Phoenix Dragway. Was there much of a rivalry you guys had with? And I remember Bob DeYoung, who worked for you guys. I first met him running the scales at Phoenix Dragway. Were many people overlap, or did you guys kind of have a esprit de corps that those are those guys and you guys are?
No, we never had any.
They never had any. They were on the other side.
They
of
run
the
the,
road.
yeah, they were on that side of town. We never
All
never
day
had
long.
any problems or anything.
Okay.
Bob DeYoung may have been the only person. You guys didn't work out there, did you?
No.
No.
You know, we had racers that would race out there,
Mhm.
and you know, I thought we had a little nicer facility, but if the, you know, there was some pride there involved. We had a drag strip that was built as a drag strip. They had an airstrip, and they had some pretty nasty bumps out there that that the drag bike guys would tell me about. That if you hit those, you had to get to a certain point in the drag strip, you had to be around that bump, otherwise those drag bikes would go airborne. And so ours was a little flatter, I believe. I don't remember any stories about our track being lumpy or scary to go down.
So we had the small tower, and then we built the bread box, the big tower. What was that like? I mean, who was that? H-Ray that wanted that, or was that something Rick wanted to do or how did that come about? The big tower.
Well, so Jim Rogers started the facility, and then I believe he sold it, whatever, you know, sold the lease or whatever to another promoter, and then that promoter ran it for a few years, and I'm repeating what I heard from Jim Rogers, and then that promoter had some financial trouble, so then Jim came back and took it over again at about 71 or 72, and that's when he brought Rick Lynch in to run it, because Jim was back in Kansas City running a drag strip back there, so that's about the time when the new tower was built. And I think when Jim Rogers took it over, between I'm not sure who funded it, between AHRA and Jim Rogers, but they built a very nice tower.
Well, I remember it was very nice. It was like the privilege to get up there, if you could sneak up there, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got up there legally, and sometimes I was up there because I was a good salesperson. I convinced somebody. The guy wasn't working the gate; they was working the tower gate, so I was able to get in it. But it was a nice thing. It definitely made the track grow up, and it was pictures over the years we could see when the track before the tower was there. Then once that tower, it was distinctive, and it was. You saw the picture of the tower, you knew it was a picture of Beeline. The track moved along. You got a lot of great events out there. That was the place to be. Phoenix was a lot smaller town back then, but the crowds out there, you know, bleachers were smaller, but it was packed.
Yeah.
You know, it was always, you want to get out there early, you want to stake out your area. Everything was about getting a good pit spot close to the fence so you could see the cars down the track. Then you started running the Saturday night or the Friday night, the midnight drags, and that brought a whole new group of people out there. I remember being on Central Avenue when it came time for that to start up. Central would our crews would almost empty out. So I mean, who was responsible? He said we need to start doing this. So how did that come about?
I have no idea on
I have
that.
no idea on that one either.
Were you guys out there? You know, the only one of the stories that I remember from the midnight drags that was an interesting one was there would be some weird vehicles come out there at midnight that people would drag. They were not normal drag racers. They were just guys that threw some stuff together or had something sitting out in their backyard, and they put a new battery in it and they drug it out to the midnight drags. That's a whole different crowd. And one night somebody came out there with a Volkswagen that had crammed a Hemi engine in it, and he wanted to run it. And were you guys out there then at all? Did you hear this story?
I don't remember that
Okay,
one.
well, I forget who was, I don't know who was doing tech out there that night, maybe my brother. But they looked over that thing and they just said, no, you are not going to run this thing down this racetrack.
Well-
Short wheelbase, way too much horsepower.
That was crazy. So you actually probably helped the guy not hurt himself, right?
Well, I wasn't out there.
No, but the track did.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I do remember the street racers. So you know, they would actually go out for the midnight drags. We had some of the notorious guys like Scotty Hall and some of the other guys that were known for being the big street racers that went out there. But the thing they really didn't like was that they had, they weren't turning the clocks off back then. People they announced an ET or even before we actually had scoreboards, and
Right.
they went out there. But the thing they didn't like about it was people actually saw that their car was actually about a 12-second car, not a 9-second car like they would thought. You know,
Yeah.
not Scott Hall, but
Yeah.
but there were some other people that really they went out and they kind of came back. But it was definitely
Yeah.
a lot of fun being out there, and I think that was a big jump in growth in for the drag strip.
Yeah.
But it came right towards the end of the drag strip when it closed down.
Then also they, at some point there, I don't remember exactly when it was, when they started the mud bogs. They dug the big pit. You'd see these people come out there with a car, they drive right off the street, Jeeps and stuff, and into that stuff, and I mean, they weren't making it to the other end, and then they'd have to be drug out there, and you could hear all the mud and stuff just grinding in the wheels and stuff when they're dragging it out, and you think, oh my God, it's going to take them days to clean this thing up,
Get it
you
to
know.
go- yeah.
Spend hours.
Hours.
Yeah, I remember that mud bog. You know, I said earlier that
Yeah.
I had to try to fill it in one time, and I even got stuck in the mud bog. So it was a. Did you try to with some motorcycle like
Motocross.
motocross?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys any of you work those events at all, or was that a different crew?
That was different.
Different people.
Yeah.
I think Rick had subleased that out to a gentleman. I forget his name, but he ran the motocross track out there and did quite well. It's very popular, and you have people that approach you from time to time. Hey, were you involved in that? And no, that was a sublease.
Good use of the land and keep it. That's
Mhm.
great.
Yep.
Hmm.
When did you know that Beeline was going to close?
You know, I don't remember myself. All I remember, it closed, and I don't remember hearing too much about it.
I don't remember either. Just,
It was kind of like a TV show canceled in the off season that before they could do their final year. Did you have a chance to have any remorse with one another? Did you guys
No,
stay close?
there's just a lot of things now, and I look back on, and I was one of the lucky guys that got a lot of the souvenirs from there.
I got a few.
Like Steve did, but I look back on it now, and there's just stuff happened so fast. I guess you weren't thinking. I guess.
You had to be quick if you wanted a
Yeah.
souvenir.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Rick Lynch was sick. He was fighting cancer, and he was always thinking that he was going to beat it. And I didn't have much involvement out there, but I talked with him occasionally. And when I would talk with him on the phone, he had lung cancer from smoking. And when I was talking with him, I could hear this distinct wheeze. I knew he was dragging on a cigarette. Even as sick as he was still smoking those cigarettes. And his daughter tells a story that he kept, he knew the lease was going to run out, but he kept thinking he was going to get better. And he would get worse, then a little better, and then get worse. And finally it just got him. And then at some point in there, the lease ran out. And then that was it.
Why do you believe the tribe didn't was the Salt River Pima tribe the community? Why did you believe that the community didn't? Why did the track not reopen? Or
Well, my understanding was that they never found a promoter that they wanted to do business with. But they were very happy with Beeline. Beeline Dragway was the community's first commercial enterprise. And Jim Rogers is very proud of that and tells a great story about how he made the pitch to them about they have some property out there. It's a great place and he was going to pay them. So there's a gas station, at McDowell Road and the Beeline Highway that it had like a little Quick Mart or something in there, and the walls are covered with Beeline stories.
The windows got murals in the windows.
And what?
The murals in the windows.
Yeah. And I'm told that if you go to the headquarters of the Salt River Pima Indians on the reservation there, they have one floor. I think on the third floor of their commercial development area, they have posters of Beeline in there. They're so proud of that track that it worked. So
it's a shame that it went away, but fortunately, somebody was eyeing Phoenix and said that we need a big show track in Phoenix, and that was Charlie Allen. And how did that come about? That Charlie got to be the guy? You were brought in later, but he had already arranged with the Gila River tribe community for the track, and then
His first choice was that trotting track that was out there on the west side on I-10. He was looking at that first, and then he came down and saw the lake. He thought, That's even better yet.
So he was going to do something.
He's going to do something here.
And my understanding was that who was it, Buddy
Murphy.
Buddy Murphy had the lease, and he Buddy Murphy was going to. He did put in a circle track, 3/8 mile clay oval, next to the lake, and he had the original lease with the tribe. Now this is my understanding, and this may or may not be true, but then Charlie then worked a deal with him and brought money in to them and figured out how to put a drag strip in the middle of there.
And the drag strip succeeded where the circle track wasn't very long lived out there.
Right.
It was a nice track. I did do.
And it was over there kind of where Bondurant was, or
Radford.
Yeah, it was over there. Yeah, it didn't last long for some reason.
It was actually where Camp Firebird was.
The
down in the pit.
Down the pit. So you transitioned on to they got the team back together. You know, Tom gets a call and says, "Hey, we need some people that can really know what they're doing, and you know, you got a team." Tom starts calling you guys out. You got the phone call, and you're excited. You're going to have another track here. Your first, you know, as a collective, again, we've talked about what it was like the first night, but as a team, it had to be a good feeling to know that even though it was a new venue for you, you knew the guy on the other end of the radio. You know things were covered. Tell me about what you remember about the night, though, as far as, you know, things happening or.
Well, back in tech, you don't get to see a lot.
Yeah.
We had a lot of guys. You hear a lot going down the track, but you don't see a lot. So we had a lot of people, you know, and I can't recollect who all was there, you know, doing the tech, but I know myself and Bob DeYoung, and I don't remember who else. We were pretty busy.
You, Bob DeYoung, myself, Tom Neely.
Okay. And
I think that's about it.
We pushed them through there. We got them through, and you know, once you get them through tech, then we kind of sit back and we kind of relax in and just follow up anything, see if anything happens or anybody needs any help. So that's what we did.
Then you moved on if you needed it.
If they needed any help with anything, you know.
So one of the guys who I really wish was still here today was a really good friend of mine, Bob DeYoung.
Right.
Tell me about what your memories of Bob was.
Great guy.
Bob was one of the best guys. Bob was an easygoing guy also, real easygoing, and
knowledgeable.
Yes, and he could be counted on for anything, and you just can't replace people like that. It's one of a kind.
He had his own way of doing things.
Yes, yeah.
But it was usually well organized and thought out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and he was a racer too. He brought out that El Camino was amazing. How the El Camino. He and Joe Faulkner.
Yeah.
Put that in El Camino with what I'm guessing a big block Chevy, and you know, who knew that without any weight over they must have had a lot of weight over those rear wheels somehow.
Word has it that the tailgate was filled with concrete.
Okay,
you always want to make sure it didn't want to open up.
That's why the tailgate was always down.
It was because if it would have slammed down, it would have come off the car and onto the track.
Yeah.
But then a few years after that, he brought out this Barracuda that was an absolute beautiful Pro Stocker, wasn't it?
No, it was a Super Stock A automatic.
Super Stock A, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, just a beautiful car and ran well.
Yep.
So he was a racer too.
Yep.
Good guy. Other people that we had there over the years, we had Gary. Let's talk about Gary Judy a little bit. About your memory of Gary.
Well, Gary had been quite the drag bike racer before he went to Vietnam, and was hanging out with Norris Bruce and Travis Toomey and the Henderson brothers, and just really, really enjoyed drag racing with the bikes. Went off to Vietnam. Unfortunately, he stepped on a mine, and the mine went off, and his legs had to be amputated. So he was spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair, but he could get around pretty good on that wheelchair, and so he still came out to the races, still helped the bike guys. And then I guess we needed some help down there or whatever on the starting line. And so he would come down there, and he was kind of doing some staging steward stuff, and it made me nervous to look at him down there and thinking, oh, he shouldn't be
almost got
down
clipped
there.
a couple times.
Pardon me?
Probably almost got clipped by a car a couple times.
Well, who wants to tell the story? Were you there, Steve, when that happened?
Which time?
Well, when he almost got backed over.
Yeah. He was trying to get the one car to come backwards because the one guy went out before he was supposed to, and he was trying to bring him back. Another guy was coming out the other way, and he turned to tell him to go out, and this guy started coming right back. And I don't remember who it was that grabbed him, pushed him out of the way, but he come real close to getting run over. But he took the armrest off that wheelchair, and he was gonna beat the living dickens out of that guy. If he'd have got out of the car, he'd have beat him with that armrest.
I would say that man was more capable than most people with legs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember if you're wrestling with him,
He was strong.
you got a hold of you. He wasn't gonna let go of you.
Strong
Yeah.
as an
You know,
ox.
he was a great guy. He played for on the Phoenix Suns wheelchair basketball team.
basketball.
He was full of life and full happiness. We had him out there, and which I know that it raised some NHRA had some issues. They're worried about him, but for the most part, he did a great. He was out of the way. He knew where he was at. He knew the risk he was getting into.
Yeah. A good story with Gary Judy was with the drag bikes. Good friend of mine, Rusty Hancock, he'd run a drag bike. He'd race with Norris and all those guys. We went to California to the drag bike nationals over there. We wanted to go putt-putt golf. Well, Gary's in a wheelchair. What are we going to do? Norris says, well, we'll get him around. So wherever we had to go downstairs or upstairs or wherever, I'd grab one arm, Norris would grab the other arm, Rusty grabbed the wheelchair. We'd walk up the stairs, sit him back in his chair, and people just thought that was the greatest thing in sliced bread. They were taking pictures of us carrying Gary up the stairs and sitting back in his wheelchair. But we had a ball out there that night. But Gary did not let that disability slow him down one bit.
No, he didn't.
He was a good guy.
I think we all learned a lot from him. So people could have felt sorry for themselves.
Perseverance.
It's perseverance.
Well, and when you think about, after he lost his legs in some hospital in some jungle, he probably wasn't sure about the rest of his life. But he loved drag racing, and thanks to all the stories and people that helped him, Norris Bruce and others, drag racing was his life. And I think he was very happy. He built twin motor drag racing bikes with a guy named Kurt Wessel, who also went to Coronado High School, and he helped build some pretty powerful motorbikes back in the day.
What's interesting, we reference to Coronado High School for drag racing. A lot of it, a lot of people went there. Just as in circle track racing, Glendale High School. With Bob Ream and Jerry Miller and this Ken Fulcher, and there's just a ton of people. So it's amazing the good stories about how our high schools led into Bill Gusick and then Tom and I. We all went to Camelback, and there's a number of people from Camelback, and
I'm sorry.
that's the way it was. Nonetheless, you guys also smile when you bring up Coronado, and so that's a good transition of our youth from going from the high school and being involved with their drag racing, and we saw a lot of young people over the years, and some of them went on to do some pretty amazing things in drag racing, and some of them was just a transition. But over the years, you guys provided all these people with a safe place to race. You watched over them. Whether I have a good friend that says, "God must love the dumb ones because He made so many of us." Okay, and people's passion for speed sometimes makes them overlook the common sense stuff, and you were there to help them not hurt themselves and to give them a safe place to race, and hopefully in a sport that we know there's probably more cars in Arizona than ever, but we're running out of places to race, and we're working hard to try to develop that. Certainly, what you guys did to keep it alive, to transition, and the people you've trained, you've taught a lot of people along the way as well, and influenced a lot of people. You were altruistic in many ways, because none of you could have made a living off the jobs that you did. You couldn't raise families, you couldn't do what you did, but altruistic service, and and I think everybody appreciates what you did and the teams that you put together. And together you're a bunch of legends, and it's been wonderful to talk to you guys today, having you together here. certain many more people that that we wish that could be with us. Some of them passed, and some of them were just not able to be here. But you're a good representative for the group of guys you work with, and thank you for being our Arizona drag racing legends.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having
Thank you
us.
for having us.
Good day,
Enjoy.
guys.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.